Hey all, so I finally got the rails I needed for the back seat. So today we're going to be working on fitting the Ford Transit double seat into the back of the van. So these are the rails that I got off of eBay. There's a bunch of different rails for the Transits. The only relevant difference between them is if they have a loop at the front and a loop at the back, or if they have a loop at the front and a place for a bolt at the back. All of the quickly removable seats use this style rail, and all the bolts down seats use the other style. I mean, that's literally it. The spacing is always the same. I got these rails simply because they have a mount here and a mount here. So by buying two rails, I got 4 mounts, which means I can cut these up and turn them into 4 separate mounts. They're like this in the van because that's a row and then this is another row behind it. But yeah, that's why I have these long ones. They're going to get cut down once I've decided on my locations and everything, but that's it. You don't need these long ones. You don't specifically need the short ones. They're all the ones that have 2 loops will fit all the seats that have 2 loops. And then these are the brackets for the quick release seats. They've got a hook for this should be this way relative to the rail. It's got a hook for the front, and then in the back there's a latch that is activated like that. So these are the ones that came with the free Transit seat that I picked up. Something I failed to check before I gave away the other triple seat is these didn't come with any bolts. So I have to get some bolts for them to mount them on the seat before I can go to the next step. So these are thread checkers. These are my favorite way to check threads because instead of being a board that you screw things into, each of these individual things you can either screw into or screw it into something. And that means that you can take something that's mounted somewhere and still be able to check the threads. It's not the right one. It's definitely the wrong bit. There we go, that's the right one. So these are M10 by 1.5. So I just have to find some bolts. For right now, I'm just going to find whatever bolts I have that'll fit in them just so that I can do all this fit up, and then I'm going to get some proper, strong bolts of the correct length for the final bolt up of these. I may even order the original Ford ones depending on what those run for. So let me grab those. All right, so this is what I was able to find. These look close to the right size. These are obviously way too big, but nobody's going to be riding in the seat while these are on it, so it doesn't matter that they're kind of jank. Loose, but good enough for my next test. So now I gotta stand this up. I gotta move these rails in. I probably should clean some of the mess out of this van. Yeah, this is the downside of owning a van, is it just kind of fills with stuff, including these really sweet wheels I picked up. I'm probably going to use these on the van if I can find another matching set of them. But yeah, I'm going to either clean this stuff out or move it out of the way, and then we'll stand the seat up. All right, so there's the seat mounted on the rails. It just hooks in the front, and then this just drops on and latches. And then you pull on this to release it. Apparently, on these vans, some of the seat brackets will come with these, and some of them won't, this plastic thing. But there's just a little hook under there. You can probably loop something around it. I've heard mention when I was looking at forums, people talking about looping a zip tie around it and use that to pull. But it pulls really easily, so you don't need this giant handle. It's just nice if you've got it. You just can't. It's hard to reach in there without it, so you need something to pull on. But something I immediately noticed is how tall this is relative to the height of the van. I measured it really quickly. These Ford seats, which obviously are not the right height either, Those are like 14.5 inch to the top of the cushion at the right where it meets here. This is 16.5, so this is 2 inches up, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's really a lot when you talk about headroom in a car. So when I'm sitting in here, if I'm sitting under the center console, my head is hitting. When I move to the other seat, my head is just barely hitting. Actually, it's hitting over here because the roof slopes down a little bit. But I'm going to gain somewhere between a half an inch and an inch when I pull out the carpeting and the subfloor, and especially if I can get these to fit between the rails of the grooves in the floor. But this headliner's coming out. The center console is definitely coming out. I may, when I rework it, put a headliner in that tucks up tighter. There's a lot of wasted space under here, if I recall correctly. But I'm also going to see if I can possibly down the line modify the seat bases to drop the entire seat maybe an inch, because that'll be fine. But I mean, in here, I'm not going to be riding in this back seat. It's rare that I'm going to have anybody back here at all except the kiddo, and it's rare that I'm going to have anybody tall in here. So this isn't like a deal breaker for me. It's just a little frustrating. I was thinking van seats are van seats. It didn't occur to me that, yeah, the Transits are way taller than, you know, these old G-Vans. So that's a not perfectly optimal thing, but it's not a deal breaker either. If you've got a van with a raised roof, obviously this won't be an issue for you at all. All right, next step, get all of this floor out of the van. All right, I've got everything pulled out in here, and unfortunately, I made some unpleasant discoveries. There is rust here, there's rust there, there's rust there, there's rust there, there's rust there, and there's rust there in the corner. The one in the corner I knew about. You can actually see some screws sticking out. That's because I threw a patch on from underneath so that it would get through inspection. But that's kind of a bummer. I was already going to be welding in here because I have to weld up the holes from the prior seats. So, I mean, whatever, I'll be in here with welding equipment regardless. But that's just kind of a bummer to discover those. These, aside from this spot, the other ones all look like they're coming up from where the unibody frame rails are spot welded on. So I don't know if that's good or bad in terms of difficulty to repair them. That one over there is very clearly from the wheel throwing up crap. It's basically on this side where I had to do all the repairs to the pillar and the side and everything. You know, essentially that's the equivalent spot on that side. So it had crap being thrown in the same place. I'm not really surprised that it's rotted. For the old holes, I'm probably just going to cut either discs or squares out of some sheet metal and then just clean this up, weld it right over the top. I'm not going to fill this hole because since I'm covering the whole floor, I don't need to be super fiddly about it. I'm just going to weld something that covers it, go in from underneath and seam seal it and undercoat it, call it good. Same for these. They're going to get cut out, clean it, whatever I need to do to make sure I've got the rust taken care of. And then a plate will just get welded in. Same with this, I'll just weld in a plate. I'm not going to worry too much about it being pretty because nobody will ever see it once I'm done. I think I'm going to fit the seats next just to see how they fit. The forward rails that I got have these, which appear to be some sort of possibly plastic rivet or something sticking up that just keeps these from laying flat. So I've got to take care of that, and then I need to cut these rails down. Once I've cut those and got rid of those rivets, I can test fit this seat in there and see if I'm lucky and these drop down between the ridges on the floorboard. All right, it's starting to get a little dark out, but I think you can see this well enough. This one will fit into this groove about where I want it to be. This one just doesn't fit. It's actually the wider points of it that don't fit. basically the welded on attachment bits. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is, once I decide where I want it front to back, I'm just going to come in and massage the side there so that it can drop down, because it's so close that it seems foolish to lift the whole thing up or shift it over or whatever just because I'm off by a little bit. I can just massage the edge of this with a hammer and get that to drop down. I'll probably massage the edge of that one too, just so that I'm not forcefully splaying the legs out, just so they can come in and drop down straight where they need to. So that's good. Having this where it is, where it's over as far as it goes, is good, because I did some measuring. My kayak is 10 feet long, which is basically to the center console there, all the way to the doors. So I'll be able to run the kayak right up the center here with the seat in this location. It is making me lean towards, if I find a single, rearranging it so that the single is over there and then the double is out here, so that we'll be able to put multiple kayaks down the center, still have room for kiddo to sit, and have room for the kiddo's kayak. As far as front to back fit goes, I was doing some fitting up, and I can move this forward until the rails are right at the edge of the floor ridges. I can move the rails forward to here, basically, and I still have adequate foot room. At that position, my feet don't hit the front of the front seat, but the front seat's also forward a little bit. I don't know exactly where the Chevy seat back will be, but if I just move this back like 2 to 3 inches, I don't really lose anything significant in terms of space in the back, but I gain a generous amount of foot room for whoever's in the second row, so that'll be more comfortable for them. So I think I'm going to do that. It's still further forward than the original seat back here was. So yeah, these transit seats actually fit surprisingly well in here. This again is the narrower one. So the wider two-person one is 4 inches wider than this seat. This is 32, that one's 36. So I actually do have probably 2 inches on the other side to fit it. But I was looking at them all, and the rail locations are different for all of them. So there's no point in me specifically locating this to account for the additional width of that seat, because if I got one, I'd probably have to move the rails anyway, because the rails are in different locations on each seat. So not even worrying about fitting for that, but it's just kind of where this all lands. I could cram this hard up against the wall, but because the seat is kind of on the narrow side, having that little gap over there just will be more comfortable. If someone wider of beam sits on that side, they won't be smashed up against the wall. They'll have that little bit of room. I have one of the horse mats that I was talking about. These are 6 foot by 4 foot. So, and this one's 3/4 inch thick. So I'm going to cut that to fit this way in here. So 4 feet back, side to side. I'll have to trim a little bit off. It will tuck up under the wall there. I may even get lucky and I may be able to just kind of shove it up under that wall for now, and then later when I pull these walls down, when I do the windows, I'll be able to then trim it to fit the exact size of the van. But if I can get it so that it sits neatly against this edge, I can get a little piece of L channel and screw that in to keep this edge of it down. And then I'll get a second one for back there that I can trim around everything. And then I'm looking at carpets, like household carpets, because my current thought is if I can get a carpet that's at least 8 by 6, I'll probably end up getting one that's like 10 by 6. I can fit that in here. And what I'll do is fit that in, have it come down like the old one did down here, so I can put that step back in, have it go forward under the seats to basically fill in that center section between the seats, and have it run all the way back. I already have plans back here for putting supports for a bed in. I'm not permanently mounting a bed, but I've decided I have an idea for building something up over just these wheel wells so that I can put in a platform when I want to use this as a bed. So the end result of that is that I won't have to cut the carpet to fit into the corners there. So I can just cut the carpet straight back. And since it'll just be straight back, that means that I can make it potentially so that I can just roll the entire carpet up over here to either the end of the wheel wells or whatever, so that I can have a rubberized floor area there with that horse mat for when I'm loading something dirty and I don't want to plunk it on the carpet. I just roll the carpet out of the way, plunk it down on the horse mat, haul whatever, engine, car parts, wheels, whatever, and then when I'm done, clean it off, roll the carpet back out, and it looks nice back here. So that's roughly the plan. So that's it for right now. I will see you in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye.